Hey folks, how's it going? Do I look excited? I'm pretty excited. I am coming to you from the new studio. Yay! Here we are, I'm in, getting settled. It's gonna take a little bit. Need a little bit more shelving, need to purge a little bit more. Still getting set up, but the important part is that I've got my sewing area set up. So I'm very excited about that, which means we can do this week's block together. So for those of you who don't remember, I am Cheryl Arkeson, your host on the Quilters Playcation Adventure Sewalong. We are here on week 40, counted beforehand, double check. Week 40 of the 2024 edition, which is rainbow themed. Now normally you would see the design wall behind me, but the design wall here is not going to be in this location. It's actually going to be on the other side of the room, and I still have to make it, but I was waiting till everything was moved in so that I could vacuum the floor and then make the design wall, because I was going to have the batting down on the ground and I didn't want it to pick up stuff. So that is probably a tomorrow or the next day job, because everything that's coming in here is in here now. So it's just about organizing, unpacking, storing, that sort of thing. I gotta say, moving here was a bit stressful, not because it's moving. I mean, that's always stressful, but that's not why. I just was really kind of overwhelmed by the amount of stuff that I had. I knew I had a lot, not exactly shocking, but really just overwhelmed by how much there was. Like, emptying the sewing room was like a clown car. Things just kept coming and coming and coming. And, you know, my son and I, on his walk to school at lunch today, we're kind of talking about it. And I said, you know, it wasn't that I didn't have enough storage. I had plenty of storage, but I had outgrown the storage. And typically what I would say in that situation is that means you need less stuff. And I was right. But I just kept filling up corners of the room and piling and stuff like that, which was never a good thing. So there was way more in there because of that. So I will be doing some purging. For example, I have 3 garbage bags full of batting pieces. So there'll be a lot of quilt as you go in my future to use up those batting pieces. It's not garbage. I've kept it because they're useful pieces, but they need to be used instead of just accumulating there. So some Franken batting and some quilt as you go is in my future, and a lot more, but we'll get to it. But that's not why we're here today. We're here today to play. Yay! I have a block designed for this. I did lay out what I'd done previous to design today's block. So I was doing that this morning in the middle of helping my son with his math homework. And I'm excited for it. I've got half of it made. We're gonna make the other half and then put it together. So let's turn you around, but I'm gonna turn you around this way first, just so you get a little tour. Still figuring out lighting for when I film, obviously, but that over there is gonna be all design wall. So I'm gonna have a massive design wall. Those are the foam boards. That silver you can see. Those are the foam boards that will get wrapped in batting to be my design wall. I have a storage room back there, which is awesome. I like having my storage put away. I am not a person who's inspired by seeing all their stuff. I just actually get overwhelmed and irritated by it. We have a tiny little kitchen area. I shouldn't say tiny. I've lived in apartments with smaller kitchens than that. Definitely have. So there's tons of storage in there as well. So I've mapped out what's going in there. There's the dog who's tired after his lunchtime walk, and he's figuring it out here. And then we come over here. I haven't hung up the ladies. I don't know where I'm going to hang up the ladies yet, but for now they're there to say hi. And then we're here at the cutting table or sewing table. So I'm keeping the same rough setup here on the sewing table. I have bought a large pressing mat that's custom cut for most of the top of this table. I'm just not going to have it on here all the time. It'll be for when I'm doing bigger pieces and stuff, but when I'm doing so much improv work, I need to be able to cut more and with the small bit of sewing. So we are here. I have a new iron, so I have to remember how to turn it on. I think I just, yeah. I bought a new iron for this space and left the old one at home, the one that leaked. Anyways, I left it at home so that we could use it for clothing. So let's get to today's block. What are we doing? I don't really know what to call this one yet, so I'll take suggestions as we go. But here's half the block. So its basic construction is kind of like a quarter log cabin. We're going to make another one. It's not going to mirror this. It's going to be, it will look like it's the opposite direction, but we're making it exactly the same way, because then when we flip this, it will go that way. So the key is that with the two halves that you make, you need to make them in the same direction, meaning adding your pieces on the same side. You might want to instinctually go the opposite side because you know, I'm just going to show you the sketch here. Right? So you can see this, you think, oh, they're going in opposite directions, I should make them in opposite directions. No, you want to make them in the same direction, and we're just going to flip it. All right, so now we have that one for reference. So I know I'm going to add my short piece always on the left side of things. So I've got just a bunch of strips that I cut off. And how big should you start that center strip? You want it to be more than half of the width of your block. Because if it's less, we're not going to have the same effect. Is it going to be a worse effect? No, but the effect of this block is with this overlap in the center, and you get kind of almost like a zigzag sort of effect. Not quite, but similar. So I want to start mine. See, if I did this, I have one made. I can use this as reference and going on there. But I'm just going to go ahead and add the one side. So starting and stopping. So one of the strange things about moving to an out of the home studio, and it might not seem strange if you're not Canadian or Japanese, maybe. I don't know how many European countries do this too. But because we take off our shoes in our house, and I know lots of people sew without shoes, but this is kind of like a half home sort of space, half commercial space, and to not have my shoes on is really weird. Or I mean, to have my shoes on is really strange. That piece is too small. That's why I put it aside. So I'm just going to grab another one, trim it to roughly the same size, fold these right sides together, and sew. Yeah, the notion of wearing shoes. So I did anticipate that, and I would prefer this to be a shoeless place, just like it would be if it were at home. So I have bought slippers for here, but I still can't sew with a slipper on. I need to take it off. So now I am standing, just to show you, with, whoops, I got one slipper on, the other one on the floor there, and then a socked foot. Because that's just how it goes. I know there's lots of folks that can't sew with shoes on. And sorry, I did not move that camera back. Let's move her back there. But I want to get in the habit of, when I'm in here, putting the slippers on. My son, who is doing his schoolwork in the morning here, he is bringing slippers down as well. But I told him not to worry about it because we haven't cleaned up from the moving in. So the floors are still quite dirty. Michelle says, yes, when sewing at retreats, the oddest part is wearing shoes. Yeah, especially when you're in a public space like that. I think when I'm having live events here, I will encourage people to bring some slippers, or at least to take their shoes off at the door. And if they're not comfortable with that, have some inside shoes to wear. So we have our first round. I'm going to go ahead and just add the second. Right, so I'm doing it based off of what's in front of me. I'm gonna sew the first couple of ones. See, I'm trimming just to give myself a nice straight edge. I'm gonna sew the first couple of ones without worrying too much about size, and then I'll start paying attention to size. But you don't want to have too wide of strips that you're using, because then you'll get up so big that when you trim it each half to the right size, you're going to cut off entire colors, right? So you do want to pay attention as you go to make sure you're not. It's not a big deal if you are too long, because you can always trim off on the side. But you do want to keep your width in check. So I'm going to actually use that. And see, I have that kind of wonky little spot. That's okay. It's a pretty wide strip, so I'm going to end up trimming that off anyways. So as I do these, I am, I'll show you in the back, pressing out as I go. It's just kind of easier to do. I only just turned on my iron for the first time making this block. It's not leaking, so it's already better than the one from home. So now when you are trimming these things off, I'm using a ruler just to have a straight line, but I'm not measuring. And in fact, a little bit of wonkiness can be kind of fun, right? Okay, so now is where, I've done 3. I'm going to just kind of keep an eye on where I am. I know I need this to be 10.5 inches wide, and I'm getting quite big here already, right? I'm going to lose a little bit, but I've still got to add 3 colors. So I'm actually going to come in here just a little. I don't want to come in too much, but you can always make that last strip really big if you need to. That's part of the comfort level with improv, is it's like a little bit of a dance, or that push-pull, needing to add a little, subtract a little, that sort of thing. And I think it's way more interesting if each round of the rainbow isn't the same size and isn't a perfectly, this isn't a perfect 90 corner the whole way. It's just going to be a little bit more interesting. Oops. Move that over just a bit more. I'm just putting the leftover strips over here because we'll use those at some point, right? So what I just want to show you here is, you can see it's a little bit tough to see, but I can see it, that this is becoming narrower and this is becoming bigger. Not really a big deal, but if it does concern you, what you can do is do a trim right on this yellow where this side is wider and this is just that little bit narrower, and you're kind of like fudging it in the opposite direction. And you can do that trimming before you sew the piece down, after you sew the piece down, or even before you lay this upper piece on it. Find that rhythm that works for you and work with it. So we're making progress. You could certainly do both sides at the same time. Right, so that you're chain piecing both sides. If you're a little bit worried or unsure, then just do one side and then double check it before you do the other. So you can see here now how, right, narrower here on the yellow than over there, and it's kind of turned it back into more of a regular rectangle along the way. Okay, add the blue. I'm just gonna sew that on. I've gotten in the habit with this block of giving myself just a fresh cut with each one. Somewhere along the way there. Just like that, and continue on. Hope everybody else is having a good week. One of the benefits, which is really nice to see, me moving in here means that the girls got to do some work in their bedrooms at home, and they each got their own room, which they have never had. They've shared a room their whole lives. So they're pretty excited about that, let's be honest. Okay, so I just want to check my height. So I'm getting quite tall here, so I'm going to trim this green one down a little bit. If you do get a little bit too tall, you can always make the outside edge skinnier, but you can always trim from here. You just don't want to make it so tall that you're trimming and not going to have anything left of your first color, right? So I'm just going to trim. This time I'm trimming just the single one, and then I will add the blue to it. And we just have to add our final one. So it goes together fairly quick, not a difficult block. You know what we don't have in here is the sunbeam. The light's a little more consistent with all of that. We might get a bit of a shadowing more into winter, just because the lower sun in the sky. So I'm just checking my width, right? I need to add this piece. So I don't want to add too skinny like that because I won't get big enough. So I'm going to go ahead and add a bigger piece. And in this case, I'm not going to trim off too much because I don't want to run out. I'll trim off the purple on the outside versus what's there. Okay. But we'll see, maybe I'm good. Maybe I have a lot of height and it won't be as big of a piece. We'll find out. We will find out. Yeah, so my old sewing room last night, it was emptied, cleaned, bed in, the giant whiteboard is installed, and I'm very happy 16-year-old in there. And then upstairs, there's a bit too much furniture in the room still, and it's a little bit of a temporary setup for her, but also the solitude. The girls are very happy. Okay, so I got to add this last piece. Let's see where I am on my height. I need 5.5 inches. So there's 5.5 inches there, right? I actually, you know, I'll have some wiggle room on where I put this. I will give myself a nice straight cut here, but I'm going to leave the blue pretty big. Not trim off too much because I know I'm going to be okay there. Okay. Alrighty, let's sew this last bit and then I will there we go. So they're the same. This one's just already trimmed. This one is not. I'm just going to move you over just a little bit so that I have room for trimming. So I need 10.5 inches in length, which I am just getting. Woo, cutting it close there, Cheryl. And then 5.5 inches in height. So I can shift this up just a little bit. There we go. So just making it in length. Clearly didn't pay that much attention to it, or enough. Or just made that last trim just a little too much. But that's all right. We're good. That's all that counts, as long as you make it, right? And if I didn't, if I was short, you know what I would do? I would just sew another bit of purple here to give me length. That's all I would do. It's a pretty easy fix. You don't have to get too stressed about it. So 5.5 inches in height, and I've got my length. So give that little trim and a trim across there. So now we have our two pieces that are going to get joined together like that. Pretty straightforward, right? So feel free to pin this if that makes you more comfortable. You know me, I'm not likely to pin if I don't need to. I'm okay with that. So I'm going to pin that last seam, or sew this last seam. I'm going to go slow and make sure I don't flip any of my seam allowances. But if you've been pressing out all along, whichever block is on top, you should be able to see, and on the bottom, they're already flowing in the direction you want. So you don't have to worry about that. Okay, I'm going to give this a press now when the block is done. Now, pressing direction, you can press open or to one side. It really doesn't matter. I'm going to press open in this case. Oh, it actually looks really cool from the back. I kind of love it. Okay, so there's it from the back, and there's it on the front. Oh, I really love the way this came together. Ta-da! There's block 40, folks. So are we calling it a zigzag? A little bit of a Greek key inspiration, lightning bolt kind of idea if we do it this way, maybe. I don't know. I will take some suggestions from you. There's the ladies over there just hanging out. Had to have them with me no matter what, right? So, oh, Connie asked, how do I like my iron? I like it. I bought one I've had before. But dropped many times and so wrecked. It's the Chi. It's not as heavy as the one that I have at home, but it's not leaking. So far, it does a nice steam. This gets super hot. Yeah, so pretty happy so far. But I have had it before. I'm just grabbing my slipper. Let's move over here. Grabbing my slipper because I feel weird in just one shoe. In there. So Mindy is asking, will you keep a sewing machine at your house? Undecided. I only have 2 machines. I have 2 machines. Yay me. One is still in the shop getting fixed, but that's the Bernina, which is fantastic for quilting, but it's really loud. So I don't like to use it for things like this or for teaching because it's so loud. But I don't want to have it at home either because I want to be able to do my quilting here. The small one is definitely more portable and could come back and forth. So I think what will happen is if I know I want to sew that night, I'll bring it home and just sew on the dining room table again. But I do find that more and more I'm loving handwork in various forms, whether that's applique, quilting, doing binding, maybe doing something that's not quilting related. So I have a feeling that that will fill up some of my creative space at home. And we're getting into the busy season where there isn't much time in the evenings The other good thing is that I'm a 5-minute drive from home. So if I'm at home and dinner ended and we don't have anywhere to go and I feel like sewing, I can either come down here and enjoy the peace and quiet and no interruptions. Or I can come down here, grab my machine, and it took 10 minutes, 15 minutes out of my life to do that. And then bring it in the next morning. So we'll see. But I think the hand thing for morning make is where it's going to go. There might be some other things. There's been a couple other weaving projects I've wanted to do. I have one quilt that I am hand quilting. And so that's, I think, what will be the next few weeks or so until I finish it. And then I have a scrap project that I want to tie. I actually have been dreamt about it the last 2 nights, so I clearly need to do it. I just need to remember where I bought the wool batting the last time, because I bought a wool batting for the quilt that I'm quilting, and I'm going to want that for the quilt that I tie. So I have to remember where I bought it. I can't remember if it was local or if I had to order that. We'll see. So we're just going to see. We're going to adapt and see how things go here. My son is with me here every morning, at least for the next month or 2. Maybe he'll be back at school after that. So it's a lot of interruptions, and I don't know. We'll see what I can get done. It doesn't need me totally hands-on, but gotta be in the room kind of thing. So we'll see what happens. I would love any feedback you have in terms of lighting, sound, that sort of thing for these videos, because I'm quite used to what was happening at home. But I'm in a big space and there's a little bit of furniture in here, but it might be a bit echoey. I'm not sure. So would totally welcome feedback. If you don't get it on this video because you're not watching it live, feel free to comment on the video or send me a note. I'm happy to get those along the way, or a comment on YouTube if you're watching it there. But we're going to roll with it. We're going to see how things go. A little bit echoey. That will improve with more fabric and quilt. It absolutely will. I think having the design wall up will actually make a huge difference. And I'm going to get a desk in front of me. The weird thing is I'm not actually bringing a lot of quilts down here. I'll bring some, but this is more the creative space, not the using space. So we'll see, but it will definitely soften up as we go. The lighting is much more consistent than my base, obviously, right? I only have half the lights on in the studio, plus I'm right beside a window. So yeah, I can imagine on the dark days, I'll just turn on all the lights and we should hopefully be good. And I can change the temperature of the lights too. So that is handy there. Well, folks, I think I'm going to let it go. I've got to go pick up my son for an appointment. And I'm just going to say this. The lighting is fantastic for my dimple. I love my dimple. Random, total self-admiration moment there is the dimple looks good in this lighting, so we'll take it. But thank you, everybody. This is Cheryl Larkison, your host on the Quilters Playcation Adventure Sewalong. I so appreciate you for joining me, for giving me feedback, especially today, for playing along as we go through the 49 blocks of 2024 in this rainbow edition of the Adventure Sewalong. Please remember to share and join in liking everybody else's posts. You can use Instagram hashtags with Quilters Playcation, QP Adventure Sewalong, or even QP Adventure Sewalong 2024. All of those will take you to these posts, these places, and we'll hang out together. We'll see you next week. We're coming up to almost the last row, but not yet. Week 40 this week, and we'll go from there. Take care, everybody. We will see you again. Bye-bye.